Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to be making a better Zelda Tears of the Kingdom inspired Pro Controller, which basically means that we'll be transforming this regular bland Pro Controller into this much better looking Pro Controller. Now the good news about all this is we'll be using a kit that is readily available on Amazon, and that is the Totem of the Kingdom glow-in-the-dark kit from Extreme Rate. I do want to specify that this is not a sponsored video. However, Extreme Rate did send me the kit free of charge so that I could do this mod for all of you. Now, I've worked with them in the past. Generally, they make very good stuff, and that's what we're going to take a look at today. We're going to make sure that this kit stands up to what we've seen in the past. And we'll be going through all the steps that you would have to do yourself if you wanted a better Pro Controller as well. And although this mod might seem complex at first, it's actually much simpler than you might think. And as long as you follow the steps, really anyone can do this. So now let's shift over to our top-down view and get started on the mod. Just remember, if you are liking the video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already so we can finally hit that 20k subscriber mark. Now just before we get started, I thought we'd take a quick look at what comes in the Extreme Rate kit. So opening this up and taking it out, first of all, you've got the main components for the shell right here. You've got all the screwdrivers and screws you would need to replace all the screws within the controller itself. You do have a small gamer manual here that explains to you where you can find information on more installation videos if you want them. And finally, we have the replacement buttons right here. And finally, our glow-in-the-dark thumbsticks. Now, contrary to the last time we did this type of mod, other than my work mat here, I will be using nothing other than what comes in this kit, just to show you all that you can really do it with this kit alone and a Pro Controller. As I said, although the mod might feel somewhat overwhelming at first, it is actually very simple once you get down to it, and I would say in about 25 to 30 minutes, you can knock this out. Now to get us started, I set aside the rest of the kit because all we'll need is the two included screwdrivers because we have to start by dismantling our donor Pro Controller. Now as we take this Pro Controller apart, I do recommend that you set aside all the original shell parts. You never know, one day you might want to revert to your original Pro Controller because if ever you or a friend has a problem with any of their Pro Controllers, replacement parts are always greatly appreciated. Now the only difference between these two screwdrivers is this one is a tri-wing and this one is a Phillips head. Now to get us started, we need to use the Phillips head and we need to start by removing the two screws at the bottom of the Pro Controller. Now once those are out, you can simply pop off the two end pieces here, set them aside as I said earlier. We won't need them for this mod anymore. Now our next step is to tackle the back plate of the controller. There are 4 screws that we need to remove, still using the Phillips head screwdriver. Once those 4 screws are out, you should just apply a little bit of pressure and the back plate should just pop off. And the next step is to remove the battery. Obviously, set this one aside. We will need it later on. However, the back plate we're done with. Now that we have our battery separated, our next step is we have 5 more screws to tackle. 1, 2, 3, and there are 2 hidden screws up here, 4 and 5. Those can be hard to see at first, but make sure you take them out or the faceplate will just not come off. Now, I've been doing it since the beginning, but I really recommend sorting your screws to make sure that you can keep each set of screws separate from one another. It makes the rebuild process after a lot simpler. And don't worry, if you don't have a work mat, you can use any small container to put your screws away. You can use little glasses, anything like that, and just separate your screws and then work your way from one to the other. Now for the next step, we're going to have to use a little bit of force sometimes because the two sides of the controller are clipped together. However, at the same time, before starting, you want to make sure not to apply too much pressure because there is a ribbon cable we're going to have to detach before we can fully separate the two parts of the controller. Now personally, I like starting at the edges of the controller here. I really find you have some better room to work with. And as you can see, this one's coming apart really easily. As I mentioned, this is the ribbon cable here, which is why you don't want to be pulling too hard at first to not rip this apart. Now, all you need to do is unclip the little part of the ribbon cable here. I'm going to use my nail, but you could use the screwdriver or whatnot, and then you can just separate the two parts of the controller. Now, while we're talking about ribbon cables, you might want to separate your second one here. You just flip up the front of this. You slightly work your ribbon cable out here. Now, the one thing you want to keep in mind is you want to try to never touch the contacts if at all possible. So you want to work with the part of the ribbon cable that is shielded, not the contact part. Now, the good news is that the bottom part of the controller, which to me looks like the more impressive part of the controller, there's only one simple mod we need to do. All we need to do is pop off the thumbsticks and place our glow-in-the-dark thumbsticks in their place. Other than that, the bottom part of the controller, you're not actually going to touch at all anymore. So once you have that done, we can just set it aside for the moment. Now, let's go work on our faceplate where we do have a little bit more dismantling to do. So if you can see here, we have 4 more Phillips head screws to tackle. Now with all the screws out, we can just separate the 2 assembly parts. And once again, I'm going to work on them one piece at a time. Here we have our front part. We can just remove this, set it aside safely, try not to touch the contacts if possible. And we're going to need to keep the rubber pads here. So you're going to want to keep all these rubber pads for the different buttons here at the front. And theoretically, this whole front assembly here, we can set aside. Now, it's important to note that some kits do not replace the plus, minus, home, and capture button. So if your kit does not have replacement buttons for those, make sure to keep the originals from your Pro controller. In this case, this kit does have replacements, so I won't need them. Now for the front part of the assembly, all you need to do is replace all the replacement buttons where they're supposed to go. The good news is that there's no way that you can make a mistake, even if you can't remember from this side of the controller where the buttons go, because they don't fit in the wrong holes, so there's no way to make any type of mistake on that end. If your button's not fitting in, that means that it's because you don't have it in the right spot, and you shouldn't need to apply any pressure or any force at all. You then replace the rubber inserts from your original Pro controller over the different buttons as you get them in place. Now this part of the home button you do have to keep. It serves as a little dock for the home button. Now once again, you just replace the rubber inserts. And once you have all that in place, you can just place the board back on the controller and set that aside while we work on the top assembly. Now for this next step, we actually have to remove these little metal rods here that are holding the triggers in. Why? Because this kit has replacement for the triggers. Once again, if you're working with a different kit that does not have replacement for the triggers, you can skip this step. But since the Zelda controller replaces all the buttons, well, we have to remove these rods here. Now, by the way, I'm going to show you how to do this using the 2 screwdrivers from the kit, because I said I would only use items from the kit to do the mod. However, if you have a pair of tweezers, please use them. This will make it so much simpler. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use your 2 screwdrivers here like edges of tweezers, and you're going to want to work the little part out as if these were the edges of your tweezers. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is going to take quite a bit of work because I'm only using the screwdrivers. This would most likely be like a 1-pull scenario with an actual pair of tweezers. So as I said earlier, if you do have them, please use them. Okay, so now after messing with it for about 10-15 minutes, we've got it far enough out that I can just use my finger to pull it the rest of the way out. And now that I've shown you that it is possible with these 2, although it does take quite a bit of work, I'm just going to use tweezers on the other side. So now that we have both the triggers off, it's simply a job of replacing them and then inserting the rod back into place to hold them back in place. Check it quickly to make sure that the movement is good. Everything is good. Same thing on the other side. Same check. Everything is good. Now the front triggers are actually much simpler. All you have to do is pull up and they unlatch like so. And you replace them with their counterparts. Clip it in here. Work it in and press it down. We've got one trigger in. Here, just do make sure there's a little notch here. You just need to angle it slightly to get it underneath that part of the controller, and it is in. Now that we have that done, we can place the assembly back where it's supposed to go. and we've got the front part of our controller done. You can always quickly, by applying a little pressure at the back, just check that all your buttons seem to be in the right spots and seem to be working. Everything looks good. Now don't forget, before you go any further, to reattach the little ribbon cable here at the front so that your assembly is working. Now for the rebuild process, we'll basically be working in reverse. I'll accelerate a lot of this because it's the exact same steps we went through for dismantling it, however, the other way around. Now once again, before assembling the two parts of the controller, don't forget to attach this ribbon cable. A lot of people forget this, and then you have to take your controller apart again. Now we're going to reset the next set of screws. Remember, there were 5, one down here, top left, right, and on each side of the battery. Now once you have those 5 screws in, once again, don't forget to replace the battery. A lot of people do forget that step. Now next, we have the 4 screws securing the back plate. And now our final step, we're going to put back on the grips and replace those last 2 Phillips head screws. So here we have our fully modded Nintendo Switch Pro controller. Now officially, it's not a Tears of the Kingdom Pro controller, it's a Totem of the Kingdom Pro controller. You know, all those copyright stuff. But you know what? To me, it is looking really, really good. Now next, let's just go for a quick input check on the buttons, make sure that everything is functioning. So we just use the inboard controller check. So we have our Y, X, A, B, everything's good. R, Z, R, L, Z, L, plus, minus, capture button, that is working. R, L, each one of the D-pad directional buttons. Everything looks to be working. Obviously, the home button can't really test, but it is working. We've just popped up on the screen here. So our controller is fully modded and functional. Now for a quick comparison, I thought we'd put them right one next to the other to the official Tears of the Kingdom Pro controller. And you know what? Let me know in the comments down below which is your preferred one, but I'll be honest, I sort of am liking the modded one a little bit better. The contrasting colors on the buttons, the D-pad, and even the thumbsticks really, to me, help it outshine the original Pro controller from Tears of the Kingdom. And I think what I like most about Extreme Rate shells is, although they're third-party shells, the buttons really don't feel like it. Like when you're holding this controller, and if you were told this was a first-party controller, I'm pretty sure that most of you would absolutely believe it. I'm going to try to get the glow-in-the-dark thumbsticks to show up on the camera. Don't know how it's going to work out, but we'll give it a try. Now I want to share some final thoughts on this mod. Now, honestly, first of all, from Extreme Rate, I would have really liked to see a pair of tweezers in the pack. And in reality, you really don't need a tri-wing screwdriver for this mod, so if you could sub out the tri-wing screwdriver, include a little tweezer, that would be a really amazing upgrade to this mod pack. But other than that, like I said, with a little bit of work, or if you have your own pair of tweezers, this mod is extremely easy to do if you follow the steps one by one. Now, do I recommend that you go out and buy a fresh and new Pro controller like I did just to do this mod? Not really. I mean, you can if you don't have the money issues, but that's quite a bit of money just to do this mod for. However, what I do recommend is this is an excellent way to refresh an older Pro controller that's starting to show some wear and tear. And rather than just chuck it away or just clean it, you know what? Refreshing it totally with a mod like this is quite amazing. Now, if you do want to pick up this mod kit for yourself, I'll be leaving affiliate links down below. As I said, this isn't sponsored content, but since I've been working with Extreme Rate for quite a few mods now, they've given me affiliate links so you can help out the channel a little bit at the same time as getting your kit. And like I said earlier, let me know which one of the controllers do you prefer. Do you prefer this controller? Do you prefer the original Tears of the Kingdom controller? Let me know in the comments down below. And on the way out, don't forget that if you do like the content, hit this like button, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and click on that notification bell so you know when all my future content comes out. And as usual, I'll see you in my next video.